I'm making a move from Chicago to Houston. Long story short, my wife got a job in Houston. My law firm that I work for now has an office in Houston, and they're letting me make the switch. So we're going to be moving there in the next couple of months. So this weekend is an opportunity to go do some serious house shopping. But in the meantime, I went and rented out a Corvette. I'll be doing a video on that shortly, so definitely subscribe if you want to see what that experience was like. But after I picked up the car and checked into my hotel, I then proceeded to look at a bunch of houses for the next 5 to 6 hours or something like that. And it was pretty much a whole day of house showings after I had landed. We're going to the Jersey Village area right now, so this is actually going to look at a property I saw earlier today. Just want to take another look at it and take a look at the streets. That's a big reason I'm here today. I'm taking a look at some properties, getting a lay of the land in Houston and the area where we're probably going to be living, somewhere on the northwest side most likely. We'll see where we actually end up, but we got to start somewhere. Now, during my first day in Houston, I actually had the privilege to meet some really great people, which I can't say I was really expecting for this quick little trip, but my agents were really nice, and they introduced me to David BANGEAN, a fellow YouTuber. I'll include a link to his channel below. But they recently helped he and his wife move to Houston, and I have to say they were just so hospitable. It was really great just to meet some really nice people, and we got to see their super awesome dogs as well. They have a bunch of puppies right now. But Southern hospitality is a real thing, and I'm definitely excited to start making new friends when we make our move down here. Either way, it was a nice little break between the dozen or so house showings I did on that Saturday. Sorry if the lighting's a little bad here. I just came back to the Jersey Village area, taking a look at that after I saw it earlier today, so it's getting a little dark out. Just wanted to swing by the street again, take another look. But one thing to note, really just when shopping in any market, is the fact that every street is going to be different. Definitely every neighborhood's going to be different, and Houston in particular, it's such an enormous city, so it's I keep reciting this stat to everyone I talk to, and that's that the population of Chicago and Houston is pretty comparable, almost the same, yet Chicago has half the surface area, so Houston is just a sprawling city by every definition of the word sprawling, and it's really kind of like almost like a gigantic suburb. No transit in sight, so you really got to understand where you're at, and it's a pretty tall order. You have a lot to look at, a lot to learn. I have a great broker helping me out, helping me to try and navigate this pretty tall order to try and figure out where to go. We're helped a little bit by the fact that BANGEAN'S job kind of points us in a particular direction. My job's downtown, so as long as I can get downtown pretty easily, that's all I really care about. But we definitely want to be close to BANGEAN'S job, which is not downtown, so we have to kind of move towards that direction. But this is the second out-of-state market that I've looked at. I own a property in Indianapolis, and obviously I have my house and my former house that is now a rental in Chicago. So I've done the out-of-state game before. This is a little different in that we're actually moving here, but I find it very helpful to just spend a couple weekends potentially just diving into a particular neighborhood, or really a city, just to kind of get a lay of the land and figure out what a good deal might look like by actually going to it. And then when you actually see a listing online, it can be, you'll more quickly be able to tell, okay, this is a good deal, it's worth looking at, or no, I don't want to invest on this street, or I don't want to buy a property on this street in this neighborhood. So by getting an actual on-the-ground look at the place, after that you can start doing more things virtually, since you have an idea, since you've actually seen it for yourself. I find that very helpful, and at least having someone with some sort of expert knowledge on the area is very important. Anyways, I'm going to get back to scoping out the area a bit. All right, I'm back at the hotel room. I got myself some tacos here from the taco truck from across the street. Now, I too like to live dangerously, so that's why I just had to go there. It had some good reviews, so we'll see how they do, but I'm looking forward to it. First impressions on the trip here, and looking at a bunch of houses in Houston, mainly Northwest Houston. First off, it's kind of crazy how far your dollar can go compared to somewhere like Chicago. I'm looking at like 2 to often sometimes 3,000 square foot homes, 4 beds, 2 baths, sometimes a pool, for something like $250,000 to $350,000, versus something like in Chicago that's going to get you half of that, if that. You might get a decent condo somewhere, so just one little unit in a larger building. You don't get a lawn or anything, so your dollar can go pretty far in Houston, that is for sure, which I guess isn't a surprise, but still, seeing some of the houses, it is a bit jarring coming from a more expensive market. And Chicago's not out of control by any means, but it is much more expensive than something like a Houston market. After seeing about a dozen properties today, there are a couple that I'm very interested in. I'm probably going to be making some offers on for my wife and I to have our new home here in Houston. We'll see what happens because it is a very hot market here too. People from all over the country see the affordability here. It's growing. There is a lot of opportunity here in Houston. So there are lots of people coming in and flooding the market with new cash to buy all these cheap but quite good houses. I'm not particularly interested in getting into a bidding war, but we'll see what happens. What I'm really trying to do is controlling costs, making sure that I don't go way out of my comfort zone here. I want to make sure that I buy a house that could serve as at least a okay rental, even if it loses, say, $100 per month in cash flow after we move out. That's really not that big of a deal, and we could always throw more money towards paying down the loan if we really needed to in order to try and create a more positive cash flow situation. But we'll cross that bridge when we get there. The point is, I'm not trying to buy a $500,000 house. Sure, we could get approved for it, but that doesn't mean it could cash flow once we move out of it. It seems like kind of at that $300,000 range is really where it cuts off, and it gets very hard to find a decent house that would become a decent rental, that is. They're great homes, it'd be nice to live in, but just trying to maintain our flexibility here so that if we decide to move out at some point, we have that flexibility because we can rent it out profitably or at least towards a break-even level to where it's not a huge burden to hold on to this property. But this was just the end of day one, so we have day two tomorrow. I'm going to look at a couple more properties before I head back home to Chicago. So far, it's been a very fruitful trip. I'm getting my lay of the land. I've met a few great people, so far so good. We got one more day tomorrow. We'll see what happens.
Day two.
So right now I'm driving to an open house. It's about midday. I have a couple showings scheduled after this, but I have some free time, so just going to some other open houses in the meantime while my agents are off doing other things before we meet up in about an hour. But otherwise, just trying to get a feel for the neighborhood so that, again, if we don't get a property this week, then when another one comes up after that, we can actually be able to tell if it's a decent deal virtually, or at least better than we would otherwise. Now, I have mentioned the hot market a couple of times, and really what I mean by that is you could say a lot of the markets in the U.S. are pretty much hot, historically speaking, and that there's not a lot of inventory. Stuff goes pretty quickly, again, relative to what it has been. That is definitely the case in Houston. It is a hot market, and what I mean by that is you're seeing a lot of properties, at least at this price range. We're looking between about $250,000 to $350,000, not too far from downtown. Granted, Houston is a very sprawling city, so everything's kind of far apart, but regardless, you're seeing a lot of those properties go off market within a few days, and that they get under contract very quickly. So apparently a lot of the time, and certainly in my experience so far, properties might come on a Thursday and they're gone by Sunday or Monday, the following Monday. So we're talking about a matter of days with a lot of these desirable properties that they're going under contract. But the key is not to get overzealous and get caught up in the emotion of a bidding war or something like that. A lot of these places are going to have multiple offers. The open house I just went to, I have a feeling, will have multiple offers on it. And other properties I'm going to be looking at will have multiple offers. I am quite confident. So it's a patience game, really in both directions. In a hot market and a cold market, you just got to be patient and pay attention to the deal. You can't get caught up in what other people are doing because a lot of people don't really know what they're doing. Maybe I don't know what I'm doing, but I'll at least try to be cautious. I'm just trying to get a property that would be decent for us to live in and wouldn't be a complete disaster as a rental, even if it means paying an extra couple $100 out of pocket once we're renting it out, if it really comes down to that. But just trying not to get caught up again, which is the hardest part, but the most important part. Anyways, I'm about to get to my last couple of showings, and then we'll be heading home shortly thereafter. All right, so just got out of that open house. Really nice home, but there are other people there. Well, it's a very hot market here, as I've said. So I have a feeling that one will probably get multiple offers. This is a really nice street. Like, look, nice and green. It's very hot today, but it's very hot almost all the time in Houston, which I think I'm okay with. But regardless, just trying to get a feel for all the streets here and neighborhood feels, house feels. Just trying to figure out what a decent deal looks like, what a decent street looks like, and so on. So, so far so good. Otherwise, it's about time to go and see my agents over at a different house. So I'm gonna head there right now in the Corvette. So So after that, I saw a couple more houses in a different neighborhood, and they were all right, but probably not too interested in making an offer on those. But at least now I have a better idea about the streets that they're on, so if more deals come up in the future, I'll have a better idea of what would actually make a great deal. But by then it was mid-afternoon on that Sunday, so I had to get back to the airport pretty quickly, so I went and dropped off that Corvette that I rented. Again, I'll have a video on that whole experience soon, and then I headed to the airport. I barely made it to my flight, but when I got onto the plane, I'd never seen this before, but it was literally steaming, I guess because it was so hot out. It was probably mid-90s at that point, baking in the hot sun. But a bit over 2 hours later, I landed safely in Chicago, and then my beautiful wife came and graciously picked me up, and that was the trip. So that was my trip to Houston. Definitely stay tuned for more content about my search for a house in Houston and all the things that are going to be coming with the move down there from Chicago. But otherwise, like, comment, subscribe, all that great stuff. And until next time, take care.